What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to another Heart Over Height episode. Today we're going to be going over Bleacher Report's article that dropped today. It is the win-loss predictions for every NBA team for the schedule release. So if you do enjoy this video, do me a huge favor, smash the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, comment down below what you agree with here, what you disagree with. I also am going to be saying the rankings that puts them in and everything like that, discussing that a little bit as well, as Bleacher Report unfortunately hadn't put that in there, but don't worry guys, I got it for you. So without further ado, let's get into this. So yeah, it's just going to give those 30 teams where they would fall and their prediction. So first up, we have the Atlanta Hawks, 38-44. That puts them right at the 9 seed here. Now, 38-44 is pretty much where I saw them, like right in that area. That 9 seed is what I'm talking about. You know, without having DeJounte Murray, you're hopefully getting a flourish out of your number 1 overall pick in Ricochet. Then you have the less is more theory with Trae Young. You're hoping he can flourish this roster a little bit, especially since you have some of that younger talent in guys like Jalen Johnson, Dyson Daniels, and of course your number 1 overall pick. Now the over-under is set to 35.5, so the Atlanta Hawks Bleacher Report is predicting that they're going over that. I mean, I could see that right in that area. Not too much of a difference there for them if they were to go 35.5 or if they were to go to that 38. So next up, we have the Boston Celtics being that number 1 seed in the East, 56-26, coming off a championship year. There might be a little bit of a slump for them, but of course, it's one of the best rosters in the NBA. I expect them, of course, being a Celtics fan, I expect them to be right back to where they were. The thing is going to be Kristaps' health as well as Al Horford's age. Will that start to show? It hasn't yet, but hopefully it just keeps us back up at the top. Right here we have the Brooklyn Nets being projected to win 19 games. Now, you know, their over-under is set to 19.5. I expect them to be the worst team in the East, and that's exactly where Bleacher Report ranked them, was 15. It's going to be a battle between them and the Wizards as who is the worst team in the East. But yeah, they gave away Mikal Bridges. They're just in rebuild mode right now. They're hoping to get a top pick in this next year's draft so that they can go ahead and go get Cooper Flag. That'll be a game changer for them. And then, yeah, your star's gone. So your guys like Cam Thomas is going to flourish there. Hopefully they can get some trade value out of him near the trade deadline and all that. But, yeah, they're not going to be a great team. Right here we have the Charlotte Hornets at 28-54. That puts them right around the 11th seed. So just missing the play-in. I think this is a lot to do with just LaMelo Ball's health. If he stays healthy, they might be able to string together a couple more wins and get into that play-in area. But, of course, it is not certain as he, just played 58 games over the last 2 seasons. So, with that, you kind of have to expect. I've been a guy who's been saying if he doesn't play like at least like 50 games this year, then you might want to consider moving off of him. I would even think if he doesn't play 60+ games, you should consider moving off of him. Because if he's not available, how can you develop team chemistry and how can you develop wins without your guy? Next up here, Chicago Bulls, 30-52, putting them at the 10th seed here. So just beating out Charlotte for that 10th seed. These guys, they saw some good play out of Josh Giddey coming from the Olympics, and they're just going to be developing their young guys. Matas Buzelis over there, Kobe White, hopefully he takes a jump, guys like that. And then they're going to try and find deals for Zach LaVine and Vucevic, we assume. Now, the problem is those deals are getting weaker and weaker and weaker by the day, so they need to kind of hurry up and get a deal done or wait until the day or two before the trade deadline. Hopefully some team gets a little greedy for them. But yeah, they being right around the 10th seed, I mean, you'd think they'd be a little worse than that, possibly, just like being below the Hornets if LaMelo Ball is healthier, and then they can compete for that number 1 overall pick. All right, right here we got the Cleveland Cavaliers, 49-33, putting them tied for the 4th seed. It's going to be a battle just like last year. That 4 through like 7 or 8 in the East is going to be tough, where there's not going to be too much of a gap right there. It's going to be a game-by-game basis at the end of this season, just deciding who's going to be the 4th seed, who's 5th, 6th, and so on. But yeah, they haven't re-signed Isaac Okoro yet. guys like Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell are still figuring out that chemistry with both of them on the floor. And then, of course, you have your twin towers, as you might call them, in Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley, still figuring out their offensive game to pair alongside those other guys. Right here we have the Dallas Mavericks at 51-31, putting them at the 3 seed projected by Bleacher Report. This is just a championship contending team. Hopefully Kyrie plays more games than he did last year, but we're expecting a better season for them. They brought in Klay Thompson, Najee Marshall, Quentin Grimes. They did lose key guys like Derrick Jones Jr. and Josh Green, as well as Tim Hardaway Jr. if you consider him a key guy. But yeah, they should definitely be a little better as Derek Lively has grown a little bit, as you've had your other guys grow chemistry together a little bit. So I'm expecting a decent jump there. Right here we have the Denver Nuggets at 55-27, them being tied for the 1 seed. Now, this one I don't know if I necessarily agree with here, just as they're going to need to adjust. Now, they are a really good regular season team, but they're going to need to adjust that play style because although they brought in Russell Westbrook and such, you have to replace Kentavious Caldwell-Pope's production there, and I don't know if they have the key players there yet to replace that production. Guys like Christian Braun, Russell Westbrook, Strawthorne is there too. Now those are going to be the guys that are going to be expected to replace that mold. I just don't know if, one, Christian Braun is at that level yet, and two, if they've got the roster and figured out, because they got kind of dominated in the playoffs. So it'll be interesting to see for sure their season, but I expect them to be towards the top of the West, maybe not necessarily the 1 seed though. Next up here, we have the Detroit Pistons, 23-59. Their biggest problem, because that puts them at the 13 seed, their biggest problem is shooting. That's going to be Cade Cunningham gets double teamed constantly. You got to be able to have people to kick it out to. Now, yes, they brought in Tim Hardaway Jr., they brought in Tobias Harris, guys that can stretch the floor. Just those both are a little bit of streaky players. They drafted Ron Holland, who's not a good shooter. Jaden Ivey, who's still working on the shot. It's getting better, but we'll kind of see. Now it is a big jump. That's the big thing, is this team could take one of the biggest jumps there is if the 3-point shot starts to click for this roster, because last year they just won 14 games. So if they go winning 29 games, that's a plus of 9 wins on the season. It's a pretty good season for you if last year you had such a poor season winning 14 games. Next up here, we have the Golden State Warriors at 46-36, having them tied for the 7th seed. Now, this roster is just a bunch of question marks around it. What's the jump look like for Jonathan Kuminga? How happy is Steph Curry on this roster? What's the jump look like for Pods? Because you gave up on the idea of trading for Lauri Markkanen around the fact that you did not want to give up Pods. So he has to take a leap in order for you to deny a trade of going and getting Lauri Markkanen because of Pods. So that's the big question mark here. Do I think that they can win 46 games? Absolutely. I think they're a great regular season team. Playoffs is where things are going to get a little dicey. I also am about to drop a video on the question I have of Steve Kerr as a coach. There's been a lot of rumors with there's the whole Jason Tatum thing that happened in the Olympics, and maybe part of this is my bias coming out because I'm a Celtics fan. But if you look, there should be no reason that there's not even a second that there's not a second for him to get on the court. That's kind of crazy. I understand, if he doesn't play a whole lot or whatever, but every player on this roster deserves like a second or so. These did not play coach's decision. It's kind of crazy to me that especially when Serbia, you're playing against Serbia and you're down by 15, why not? Clearly what you've been doing doesn't work. Why not throw someone like Tatum in, who is an all-NBA caliber player? Same thing with Tyrese Halliburton or Joel Embiid. When their minutes were getting cut, why? I understand, there's only so many minutes to go around. I'm just talking about he couldn't even touch the floor for a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. I don't know. That was the biggest question mark I have. And with Steve Kerr too, I question how he coaches, because you look at everything that's happened with Draymond, and he's kind of just like put his hand over his eyes as if he doesn't see it. The punching teammates, the choking out Yusuf Nurkic, like all that stuff, like stuff like this happens and they just overlook it, and it questions Steve Kerr's ability to coach. Same thing with Durant wasn't feeling it in Golden State, left and went elsewhere to Brooklyn, right? And then you have Klay Thompson, same thing. He goes and he leaves. And if Steve Kerr really wanted them to stay, I feel like they could have stayed. But I question his coaching ability a lot too, because Mark Jackson built that roster from the ground up, right? He was the coach of the squad, when they had Curry, Klay, Draymond, and then they had Harrison Barnes here, and they had, Andrew Bogut there, like rosters like that were, competing for a title. And then he gets canned, and Steve Kerr absorbs all of this talent and just has this easy walkthrough. That's where I don't know if Steve Kerr is necessarily one of the better coaches in the NBA, or he just absorbed a great situation. He got lucky. I'm not saying he's a bad coach. I'm just saying that I question his ability to coach off of those few things that you can kind of see. Guys have left his roster because they're just not happy with Kuminga had to go and demand a trade to get playtime. And the guy in that stretch was averaging like 25 points a game. How does that guy have games where he didn't play? That's on the coach. It's not on Kuminga. That's on the coach. And then he has to go to the media and say, hey, look, they're not playing me, so I got to go to a place that's going to play me. I want to trade. For Steve Kerr to wake up and be like, oh, shoot, maybe I should play this guy, like kind of thing, that's just so... that's what makes me question his ability. Next up here, we do have the Houston Rockets. Now, 44-38 puts them right around that 10th seed. They're tied with two other teams for that 10th seed. The West is always a battle. It is always a battle where it is separated by one or two games, where one day you could be in the playoffs and set, the next day you could be bouncing and out of the playoffs. It is always that close. I do see something similar to this, just kind of like last year, their year. Right in the middle of the pack is where they're kind of located, and that's where I see them at. Just seeing really what Reed Shepherd can do, as well as having this roster. Do they find a trade for Jalen Green? Do they find a trade for Alperen Sengun? Do they run some more small ball with Jabari Smith at the 5? There's some question marks here that they need to fill out for sure, but I do think that this roster is headed in the right direction. Right now we have the Indiana Pacers at 46-36. They are the 7th seed, separated by one game for that 8th seed. But I think that they might be better than this. They could be better than 46-36 because they have had this year to develop with each other. Tyrese Halliburton's confidence is probably through the roof right now. Even though he didn't play a whole lot for Team USA, he's an elite point guard. He also took the opportunity to just learn and absorb from all the greats. Curry, Durant, LeBron, sitting there literally being mentors for him the entire Olympics. You don't get too many opportunities to have one of the greatest scorers in Kevin Durant, one of the greatest shooters in Steph Curry, and one of the greatest players of all time in LeBron. And you get to talk to all three of them every day at practice. That is what's nuts. And we could see a huge leap out of Tyrese Halliburton for that very reason. Same thing with someone like Anthony Edwards. I could see a big leap out of him because of that very reason. All right, next up we have the Clippers here at 42-40, putting them just outside the playoffs at the 12th seed. There is no reason for them to be bad because they don't have their picks, right? They obviously made a big splash trade to go get Paul George a few years back and gave up 5 first-round picks for him to the Thunder. So the Thunder are sitting in a pretty situation, but there's no reason for them to be bad. I just think that they're going to be bad, worse than this. I don't think that I think Kawhi's going to end up being injured or sitting out or load management. They brought in these guys that are looking for second chances, which can work. We've seen that with Utah, with Lauri Markkanen, of course, where it didn't work at his previous 2 situations, but it worked here. Then you see, just other, is James Harden really worth that kind of money and everything? I don't know. So I could see this team being a little bit worse. Here we have the Los Angeles Lakers at 44-38. I've said this, they're going to stick right around the same spot that they were last year, with just the fact that the roster didn't change too much. Might be a good thing, but I see them staying pretty stagnant. Here we have the Memphis Grizzlies at 49-33. That puts them at the 6th seed. Being a 6th seed, they're close to the play in there, but we got to remember when Ja was fully healthy and played a whole season with them, they were like 51. They had 51 wins on their record. So you got to think with him being back, Jaren Jackson back, Desmond Bane back, everyone's fully healthy, they might be way better than they were last year. Last year they were bad because the whole roster was injured all year. Here we have the Miami Heat at 45-37. This one, I don't know. They might be a little better. I was watching it. I saw a workout video of Jimmy Butler in the offseason, putting in that time and everything. He might be on this dark horse, like, all-NBA player this year because he is on contract year. He's going to want one more bag before he retires. So you got to think, if he goes out and he balls out and has a great season, he's going to get a bag from someone. So I could see them being a lot better than this. Milwaukee Bucks at 51-31. That puts them at the 3rd seed here in the East, separated by 1 game to the 2 seed. The Bucks are going to be decent because they got Giannis. That's just what it is. That's the reality. He's a great regular season player. He's a good postseason player. It's just, are they going to be able to have some playoff success? That'll be the big question. Here we have the Minnesota Timberwolves at 50-32. That puts them tied for the 4th seed. Tied with 1 team for the 4th seed. They're going to be a good squad. They were last year. They're going to be better this year. The roster looks good. Rob Dillingham is going to be a solid rookie coming off the bench to just learn from Mike Conley. I'd be scared for them specifically. They could be dangerous in the playoffs this year. And I said dark horse MVP could be Anthony Edwards. Next up here we have the New Orleans Pelicans at 46-36. That puts them at the 8th seed, tied for the 8th seed with the Warriors, as I mentioned earlier. I hope that they find a landing spot for Brandon Ingram. Just let Zion flourish. Let Herb Jones and Trey Murphy flourish. You brought in DeJounte Murray. You got CJ McCollum there. This roster's ready. It's ready to win. I hope that they find a suitor for Brandon Ingram and they get a center, and then they're chilling. They're going to be a lot better. Here we have the New York Knicks at 49-33. That puts them tied with the Cleveland Cavaliers, as I stated before, for that 4th or 5th seed, just depending on who wins that tiebreaker throughout the year. I could see them being better than this. I could see them bouncing all the way up to a 3 or 2 seed. They've got the roster there for it. Here we got the Oklahoma City Thunder tied with the Denver Nuggets for that 1 seed in the West. 55-27. This roster's got it. This roster, there's probably going to be a lot of money on this roster going to the finals. And they have everything that they need. They got the star in Shea, secondary stars in Chet and J-Dub there. They have Lou Dort, lockdown defender, as well as Alex Caruso. They've got guys that can adjust accordingly for what they need, i.e. Cason Wallace, solid defender, and Isaiah Hartenstein, big body bruiser. So if they go up against the Nuggets or someone like that, they'll be prepared. So I could see this team being a lot better. This could be a 60-win team. Next up here, we got the Orlando Magic at 48-34, putting them at the 6th seed. I think that they're going to be better. I think that they are ready to take a jump, especially bringing in Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. These guys are young, too. Franz and Paolo are 22 and 21. They're young. They're ready to win. They want to win. Paolo is the most underrated number 1 overall pick in the history of basketball. Here we have Philly, 52-30. They're going to be a good squad. 2 seed. The East is going to be a bit of a battle this year for the top. All these rosters are getting better and better and better, and Philly is one of them. Bringing in Paul George, we get to see how he does with the 76ers. I expect them to be good. Phoenix, again, should be better. 50-32 puts them at that 5th seed, tied for 5th seed with Minnesota. And, they brought in Tyus Jones. Tyus Jones on a steal, $3.3 million. He's that point guard for them now, and they can just shift everyone over. So they've got a solid starting 5. The bench will just be the question mark there, but I think that they've got it. Here we got the Portland Trailblazers at 15-67. We expect this team to be bad. We expect a bit of a jump for Scoot Henderson, hopefully. Shaden Sharp also. Anthony Simons. This squad is just rebuild mode. Just get your pick and move on. See what's up with Donovan Clingan and if he'll be good. Hopefully you can find a trade partner for, guys like DeAndre Ayton, Jeremy Grant. Here we have the Kings at 44-38. This is exactly where I expected them to be, right around the play-in area. They are the 11th seed, tied for the 11th seed with the Rockets and the Lakers. So this squad, I don't think the DeMar DeRozan signing was that detrimental to help them win so many more games. It's not championship contention by any means, in my opinion. Here we have the Spurs at 33-49. You expect a huge jump out of these guys. Bringing in Chris Paul, Harrison Barnes. You got Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, and then, of course, Victor Wembanyama, who's probably going to be Defensive Player of the Year. He's going to go out and could make an All-NBA team. He'll be an all-star for sure. They've got a good roster there. It's just they don't have enough right now to win playoff games. Toronto at 26-56, putting them at the 12th seed. That all depends on these two guys right here. Quickly and RJ Barrett. You know Scotty Barnes is going to go out there and ball out. Are we going to see big jumps out of these two, though? I could see them definitely being a little better here. Possibly even a play-in team. They're over-under set to 30.5. The Chicago Bulls are 30-52. They're in the play-in. They're not too far off. Here we got the Utah Jazz at 26-56. This squad's not going to be great. They're going to be a 14 seed, Lauri Markkanen, and then they're going to go use their pick and go get a good guy. They might trade Lauri Markkanen in the offseason, but they can't trade him right now in this season. 6 months from now, it'll be past that trade deadline. So, last but not least, we do have the Washington Wizards at that 14 seed, 20-62. This roster is just not good. Hopefully you get something out of Alex Sarr. Desperately, this team needs something out of Alex Sarr because you've been missing on draft picks in the past. You traded Denny Adbiha, which kind of a bummer because I liked him on the roster, but you're probably going to find a suitor for Kyle Kuzma around the trade deadline, and then who knows what's up with Jordan Poole, what kind of season he'll have. So if you guys did enjoy this video, do me a huge favor, smash the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, comment down below on what you agree with, what you disagree with here. All right, guys, it's been another Heart Over Height episode, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.